Welcome to B2B Marketing Methods. I'm your host, Terri Hoffman, and I'm the CEO of Marketing Refresh. Let's face it, embracing digital marketing is daunting. This podcast was created to make it more approachable. Join me as we talk to CEOs, sales leaders, and revenue growth experts who will share lessons learned and tips from their own journeys. Hi, and welcome to another episode of B2B Marketing Methods. I'm your host, Terri Hoffman. Welcome to the show today. Today, my guest is a woman named Libby Olson. Welcome, Libby.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great. Libby is a partner and the COO at a company called Growl Agency. Growl is one of our partners that we work with together on client projects. I'm going to have her talk a little bit more about that, but the fun parts that we're going to cover today in our conversation is a lot about CRM, but more specifically, what is the value? How does organizing your data, organizing your sales and marketing data into a CRM tool impact the success of your revenue pipeline operation? How does it impact the potential for mergers and acquisitions and really being able to scale efficiently? We're going to talk about some of the wins, like the actual real life wins that Growl has worked on and some of the playbooks that they've put into place. We're going to be debunking some myths out there. I'm so glad I get to use that word. We're going to be debunking people who are skeptical about CRM because there are a lot of marketers and sales professionals out there who have positive experiences, but there are also many who have negative experiences, and we're going to debunk some of the myths and talk about some of the ways to overcome those potential pitfalls and failures through best practices. So welcome, Libby. Thanks again for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
We are going to start with just getting to know you a little bit better. So I'd love if you can just give us a little bit of background. First of all, explain who Growl is, and then let's talk about where your career started kind of leading up to Growl.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Growl, we spend our days helping companies make sense of their tech and really putting the customer back at the center of everything. And, most teams have great tools. They have CRMs, they have automations, dashboards, ERPs, a ton of really great tools. But the problem is that none of them really talk to each other. And what we do is we come in, we connect all of the dots, we build connected systems, and not just technology, but also in the people and process side of everything. So everything just works smarter together. We really focus on finding that friction in systems, in communication, and really those critical handoffs between marketing and sales, sales and customer service, and also kind of how operations often fits into all of those conversations as well.
I love that because, I even in the introduction, I talked a lot about sales and marketing, but you just talked about two other groups of the company that really are the other pieces of the puzzle. And marketing a lot of times just gets stuck over on the side, like they're the other group who, runs the trade shows and helps with email campaigns and helps with social media. But a healthy organization that is in a scaling mode and in a growth mode is really thinking about how marketing connects into those other parts of the organization because they're all part of what really makes a cohesive client experience. And maybe there's even more to it, but that's actually my point of view, on why it's so important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And we were talking with another agency friend of ours that we've had for a long time just yesterday, and really talking about that often clash between sales and marketing and how that's been going on for decades. Like probably since marketing and sales kind of became their own entities, in the corporate world. And we haven't really, as an industry, figured out how to solve that yet. And so that's really what we come in and work with companies to figure out. And how do you have that cohesive conversation? And again, it's really about putting the customer first. And if we're thinking about the customer at the center of everything we do, we can figure out those friction points.
And I think what's kind of cool about your background is you haven't always been at an agency, right? The owner and person who's running an agency, you've been on the other side of the equation too. So you have a different ability to relate to what your client is going through. So talk to me about how your journey in the marketing world got started.
Yeah, I actually spent most of my career on the other side of the table. I got my degree in marketing and then started the same way a lot of people did, kind of right out of college. I got ground floor at a company. I was working in a manufacturing company at the time. I was running trade shows. I was doing the catalogs because that's what we did back then. I'm gonna date myself a lot when I talk about the things that we do, but direct mail campaigns. I think we were doing a little bit of email back then, some email marketing and kind of the early days of all of that. And, really being a generalist in all of the things that marketing would do. And then throughout my career, started to figure out where were the areas that I started to gravitate to, what are the things I like to do, my talents were kind of connected to, and that really fell towards kind of demand generation, technology, automation as that started to come out. And that's really, I started to kind of company by company started to narrow that down. So I worked for large enterprise manufacturing companies that were global to small startups, SaaS companies, software companies in the retail space, in-flight internet when that launched and became a thing. And we were all excited that you could get internet in the sky. And now we're like, is there nowhere I can not be connected? But yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
all
funny.
kinds of different positions, but yeah, a lot on the corporate side. So really sitting in that seat from the marketing generalist all the way up to the director and kind of senior level marketing across these companies, and got a chance to work with a lot of agencies and some really great agencies, that I think I bring a lot of that agency knowledge to our agency from some pretty amazing peers that I had at that time, but then also have that insight of what is the craziness that it's like to be inside of a corporation and the things that you get pulled, the different things that directions that you get pulled into every day.
Yeah.
And so when we on this side get frustrated, like my client's not getting back to me, I kind of have that sensitivity of because they're running around with their, head
Hmm.
crazy, not knowing, being told five different things from the 12 different people that they're reporting to.
That is so true. Fortunately, I kind of feel lucky that I've also gotten to work on the corporate marketing side, and you do develop a very different level of sensitivity to that. And we're both business owners. And so
Right.
some of our clients are business owners, and
Yeah.
we have the sensitivity to that as
Yes.
well. I think it also puts you in position to kind of predict what they might be looking for, like what would be helpful to them. Because for sure we're going to be waiting for answers. That's just sort of part of being in a service company.
Right.
But if we know what they're probably going through, then it might be easier for us to say, like, well, how about if I did this for you? Would that, kind of make it easier for you to get the decision you need? Or what do you need for the people you report to? And can I help you pull that together so that we can all get a decision to move forward
Yeah.
with? Yeah.
And I know, we have a very similar philosophy and, the clients that we work with really value that partnership and want that person, kind of arm in arm by your side. And those are the people that we work best with. And I know you guys do too, because they value that partnership. And it's not just, kind of a order taking vendor type relationship. It's truly a partnership.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a good way to dig into some of the things that I think we wanted to talk about. So, I guess connecting your career path back to what you're doing today, you've definitely carved out a niche in more of the marketing technology space of the marketing umbrella, right? What would you say, was there a certain tool or a certain part of your career where you were just like, I really want to dive into this direction. I really like this. Or was it more
You
of that
know,
accumulation of a lot of different things that happened?
I think it's accumulation of a lot of different things that happened. I think Marketo was my first experience into any type of marketing automation at one of the
Yeah.
companies that I worked with. And that like opened my eyes and blew open the doors with what we could do in marketing at that time. And that was just incredibly exciting to me of how we could personalize and understanding that the mo the more we knew about people, the better experience we could give them instead of just firing a bunch of information at them via all of these different channels. We could truly give them a curated experience based on who they were, what they cared about, what part of the conversation they were walking into. Are they, did they just walk in and not know who we are? Or have they been around a little bit doing some research and they're kind of trying to decide, okay, which direction do I want to go? Do I want to go with you or somebody else? And really
Yeah.
curating that conversation.
Okay, and we're gonna talk about personalization as we get into this conversation because I love how you describe personalization. It's way more than just using somebody's first name and
Yeah,
right or the city that they live in. So
right.
let's talk about what I think, your partner at Growl, he uses a term that I just absolutely love, data therapist. So
Yeah.
could you describe what is meant by that term? Because I think it starts to explain what you do and how it connects to a CRM tool as just one example of that data therapist,
Yeah,
forward.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you think about going to therapy, in kind of the traditional sense, you
Hmm.
typically go for one purpose. You have a problem that's on the surface. And what you end up dealing with in therapy is not that surface problem. It's a whole bunch of underlying things that are coming out as that symptom. That's a symptom of a problem that you have that's a lot deeper. And that's really how we approach a lot of these projects. It's kind of like therapy, where we understand that this is an outcome that you
Hmm.
have. You have a low conversion rate, or your sales team isn't following up on leads, or whatever that problem challenge might be. We get in and we start to ask questions, just like a therapist would. Tell me more about that. And start to dig deeper and deeper and ask questions of everybody in the team and talk to me about your processes. Tell me about what you do every day and understand everything that's going on in the whole ecosystem, not just look at the system or even just the data, but talk to us about everything that's happening around that. And that really tends to highlight where the challenges are and
Hmm.
what's really causing that end problem of I'm not getting the conversion rate that I need, my customer acquisition cost is too high, whatever brought them to us originally.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And that I like how you put that. The more, because I've been in meetings with you where you do it, you ask why, and just like therapy, this is a really tough project to kind of bite into and engage with because it can actually reveal some kind of systemic operational issues that have to be addressed along with the implementation of something that's cleaning up your data and housing it like a CRM tool.
Yeah.
But for brands who really want to grow and scale and grow, you've got to get over that hurdle and embrace it. And if you're led by the right team, it's not as painful as it could be if
Yeah.
you weren't working with somebody who had the expertise that you guys have. In my opinion, I've watched it. I've watched the good and the bad.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there can be a lot of emotion tied to it when you start to dig in. You have all the
Hmm.
different personalities and complexities, and it can be people, we've already spent a ton of money on this, or, that's somebody's baby project, or, whatever it is, it's trying to kind of work through all of those things. And again, putting the end goal in mind and letting everybody kind of get their feelings out, but let's move forward and kind of move beyond all of that and figure out how do we come together and create the best possible solution for every person and every division and ultimately the company.
Right. Yeah. So what are some of the common issues that you do run into when you get into that consultative beginning part of a project? Like what are some of the things that you run into? I'm sure there are a lot. You don't have to give me the full list, but what are some of like the common ones?
A lot of big ones, and this is another reason I think kind of what guided me into what we're doing now is that sales was never involved in the initial conversation. So processes were built, systems were built without ever having a conversation with sales. And I saw that when I was in corporate, everything was built without the sales conversation. Sometimes even built without the marketing conversation. IT would just build it. We can't shove people into a system. We have to curate a system that meets people's existing processes that maybe have an opportunity to be refined and optimized, but we have to talk through that and kind of convince everybody that that's the right path to go and do some change management along the way, not just, okay, here's your new life. Good luck. If anybody's ever tried to do that with sales, that will never happen.
Yeah,
Your best salespeople won't ever, they just won't do it. And you're not going to fire them because they're your best salespeople. So you're just not
right,
going to get what you need out of that system, and the other people will do it, but they're not going to be your best salespeople. So, in
right.
order to get what you need, the biggest thing is getting sales involved early on in the conversation and making sure that they're a part of it. Data governance is another big one. And we see it almost every single time. It's a tough one because often when you're smaller or starting out on a project, that doesn't come out as a priority oftentimes. And it's not a priority until it's a problem. And, until you see the after effects of not having any data governance and having the huge project of having to try and clean up your data. And yes, we have AI tools now, but they can't do everything. It can do a fair bit and it can human led, it can do a lot, but it has to be AI recognizes patterns. So you still have to know what's wrong with the pattern in order to tell it what to clean up going
Okay.
forward. So it's still a massive project to figure out what's messy in your data to know what we have to clean up and know what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
those are probably two of the biggest ones that we see.
Okay. And those are
Not small.
alone are not small, enough of a reason to move forward with this type of initiative because the value at the other end of that is enormous. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. Like, what are some of the, I guess, wins or value points that you've seen come out on the other side where I suspect a lot of times the client is like, oh, I didn't even realize that would be a possibility until you helped us get sales bought in and until we had our data cleaned up. I didn't even realize we could do X, Y, and Z.
So one example, this is really about aligning teams. It's not necessarily about a revenue number, but as you have aligned teams, you have efficiency optimization. It's just going to happen. We worked with an economic development company. They were utilizing two different CRMs. They had kind of a sales team that were driving economic development, bringing people into the community. And then they also had a fundraising team, people going out into the local community trying to raise funds through businesses, wealthy individuals, other organizations, etc. Two different systems, two completely different paths, and their marketing person kind of stuck in the middle, not really able to access either one of those things to truly even support them. So then they were
Wow.
relying on the salespeople to export information anytime they wanted to send an email, anything like that. And so they really needed to consolidate their systems, one. But not only that, even within their systems, their individual sales reps had their own individual process. So there was no cohesion again around process either across the different reps. So it really was that not only system conversation about, okay, yeah, we can migrate and bring systems together. And obviously they need different things. A fundraising team needs very different information than a sales team. So yeah,
Right.
we can curate that, migrate all of that data. That's a systems conversation. But also having those conversations with each of those people and identifying too, what is the best practice? What is our best opportunity and go-to-market plan? Whether that's fundraising or bringing new businesses into the community, who are the winners? Who's winning? Let's look at
Mhm.
our data. Which ones are winning? What are the processes that went into those and which ones are winning? And kind of have marry those two things together of what can we see from data? And then what also can we have just in an organic conversation of what do you guys feel like is winning when you have those connection conversations? And how do we make that a little bit more consistent across all of your salespeople because those people you bring into the community are going to end up having a conversation
Right.
and they'll be like, well, my experience was like this. Well, that wasn't my experience. My experience was completely different. And that can have kind of a brand disconnect after the fact. And
Yeah.
then, even that repeat conversation or existing businesses or businesses that come into the community can then become funders. You
Yeah.
want to make sure you have that really strong, consistent brand message to all of these people all the way through that funnel.
Yeah. The message and the kind of experience of that
Mhm.
process. Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't you, I mean, I think a lot of salespeople get nervous when they hear process because they feel like, no, I have my own style and it's worked and I know how to do this, right? But part of the reason you involve them is to make sure you understand, like, what is that? What are
Yeah.
you actually doing? Because certainly there's value in your personality and your ability to build relationships, but there's steps you're following that are also part of it, that are creating that success, that those steps can be scaled and taught to someone else, and they can be trained on those things. And you can all still have your own style, your own way that you're building those relationships can be unique to each person.
Yeah. And no matter who you are, there's a part of your day in your process, or you're dealing with headquarters or another team, that there's friction there.
Yeah.
And it's hard. There's hard parts in your day. And is there an opportunity to make those hard parts easier through automation, through systems connection, through ease of access to something, whatever that might be? Is there a way that we can reduce that friction? And that's really all we try to do, is how can we reduce friction in getting knowledge and getting access to data and getting approval for pricing, whatever it might be. We're
Yeah.
trying to speed that process up and make it easier for everybody.
Yeah.
Definitely not trying to, like, everybody has gray suits and going down the single path, you know?
Right, but I do think that's what I do think
Yeah,
when
100%.
a tool is implemented maybe with some misguided approaches, that is what happens. And that's why a
Yeah.
lot of salespeople don't like
Like, nope.
CRM tools and they won't use them, and they're like, nope, don't need it, don't want it, and they run the other direction when they hear that acronym. There has to be a healthy approach to it with the right mindset and outcomes in place. So I think that was a really good description. I think typically, don't you find that leadership teams are interested in like accessibility to the data they want to see? Like, what does the pipeline look like? How close are we to closing deals? What I want to be able to plan around this. Do we need to, open up a second shift in our facility? Like, those are the kinds of things they're mindful of. Do I need to hire more? Do I need to set more cash aside to be ready to go out and pay headhunters or go out and pay recruiters? And they've got to be able to plan around that. So do you find that leadership is typically interested in that as kind of a driver to your type of project?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially on the
Yeah.
sales side, because a lot of times what they're getting is inconsistent numbers. They're getting one number from their sales team. Finance might be telling them a different number, even from a pipeline perspective. If they do have a CRM, it might be saying a different thing. And so they might be getting three different data points that are all coming from systems or an ERP, which might say, yeah, a different thing
Mhm.
from orders and what's there. And which one do you believe? Which one's the truth? And that's what they're really looking for a lot when they're coming to us, is just frustration of, I don't know what's the truth. I feel like we're doing a lot of things three different times or manually, because I have to look at this system and this system and this system and combine my spreadsheets together and figure it out. And because I don't get everything in one beautiful dashboard the way that I want it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'm sure a lot of business owners listening to this can relate to that pain. It's a very real pain. It doesn't matter the size of your company, but when you have like a mid-size company, and certainly larger than that, the ripple effect of not having that information correct is pretty massive. What is the marketer looking for? What is that person in the marketing management role who might be the only marketer on staff, or, you know, there might be a couple people, but somebody owns that
Hmm.
system. What
Yeah.
are they looking for out of a project?
It depends on where they are. If they
Mhm.
have never implemented a CRM, they're really looking for they're looking for data of where to spend their marketing dollars, because they don't know how well their dollars are converting. So everything's a little bit of a guessing game. They know their early on conversions. They may know how many people turned into a lead, but did
Mhm.
those leads turn into sales? That can also happen if they do have a CRM, but sales isn't putting in the data that they want. If they're not getting that feedback back either from a sales team or an ERP, whatever their system might be, or whatever they're selling, if they're not getting that data feedback of what closed, that's a lot of times what marketing is looking for. Like, I know how many leads I gave you,
Yeah.
but what did that turn into from a revenue standpoint?
Right. Oh my gosh, I think you hit the nail on the head. What did it turn into? And if it didn't turn into anything, why? What
Why?
happened? What
Yeah.
did they, what was not right about the leads that we generated your way so that I think it maybe sounds a little trite when a marketer says this, but we actually can adjust things in order to make that more right or to get it further on track. Like that is actually a real thing that marketing teams can adjust pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can
Yeah.
affect, depending on the type of your business. I worked for a direct to consumer company, and it was a type of company that had a relatively higher churn than a typical type of company. And it was just that kind of an industry. And, being able to even identify where leads came from and identify churn rates, not only what became a customer, but how long did they stay, and understanding the total customer lifetime value. Because, yeah, I might get 5% more customers out of, say, paid search ads, but they're staying longer if I get them from direct mail. Direct mail
Right.
costs more, but if I get more money out of them at the end of the day, then I'm better off. And exactly that, I can adjust my marketing spend. Not that I would ditch paid search altogether, but how do I adjust that to make sure that we're getting that optimal customer acquisition cost if you're in that
Right.
more kind of high volume type of a business?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes the in-house marketing person may not know how to, they're going to be really great at gathering all of that data together. And our company can step in and help with like, how do you analyze that now? How do you look at that and decide, well, okay, I see what the data is telling me, but I'm not exactly sure what to do about that. Somebody in a more strategic seat can say, well, here's the action you should take, or here's how you could reallocate your budget. But without that data, it's a guessing game. Like somebody on my team likes to say, you're just constantly playing whack-a-mole.
Yeah,
And
totally.
that's fun to play in an arcade, but not with real money. Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about AI training. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty hot topic right now. And so, we haven't really talked about the name of the system, but like HubSpot as an example,
Hmm.
HubSpot is the CRM tool that I think our
Yep.
company and your company really has the strongest belief in and work around. So let's talk a little bit about how a tool like HubSpot and the data in HubSpot can help effectively train AI and what you mean by that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, true for any optimized system, but as you said, we hooked our horse to the HubSpot cart years ago, and we used to be
Mhm.
agnostic, but in order to know something really deeply, you have to kind of pick one these days because they are really deep technologies, and we chose HubSpot. And the thing with HubSpot is that they are one, they're really leading a lot when it comes to AI and a kind of popular term now, agentic workforce and workflows, just meaning that, agents and whatever that means is, I know what it means, but
Yeah.
whatever that means for everybody else in your own workflow pattern, they're really leading a lot of that. And one of the founders has really been pushing forward with that, building his own HubSpot specific agents and digging into that and creating his own ecosystem there. They've really been pushing forward into figuring out. Let me back up a little bit actually. HubSpot, my journey with HubSpot started long ago when I was in the marketing corporate world, and I was not a HubSpot customer, but I've followed HubSpot and got every single newsletter they have because they were the best content marketers out there.
Yep. Yeah.
And we just followed everything that they did. When they pick a path, they dig into it really hard. And one of the things that they have always been successful on is understanding that the customer is first and should always be at the center of the experience. And they understand the sales conversation, whether that's B2B or B2C. Um, and there's definitely niches they play better in, some than others, but they really understand that. And so they're building those tools focused on that. So some of the key things that they're working on are things like the customer agent, which
Hmm.
pulls in everything. You can train it on all of your company information, building that knowledge base of everything that you have ever created from a customer service standpoint and pull that into a customer agent to really help from a self-service standpoint. And not to, I mean, I don't, maybe HubSpot has this mindset, but not to replace your customer service team, but to really respond to a lot of those quicker self-service types of questions or the type of user that's never going to call you anyway. They
Hmm.
want to self-service, they want to figure it out themselves, and they don't want to talk to another person. And so the more you can help them figure that out, the better chance you have of retaining that customer.
Yep.
On the other side of the conversation, they're building the prospecting agent, really trying to help on the original sales conversation. And again, not in any way to replace a salesperson, but what is your biggest challenge as a salesperson? It's knowing the customer. What's their pain point? What's their challenges? What's going on in their world? What's going on in the news in their world if they're a big enough prospect that they might be in the news or
Mhm.
putting out content anywhere that's published online? Being able to find that, aggregate it, read it, understand what's all there, know what matters based on the conversations you've already had. Imagine how many hours that would take. But if you have AI that can go find that, scour the web, find all of that, aggregate it, summarize it for you. Oh, by the way, here's the top 5 points based on what you've already put in as the information from the real life conversations that you've had. How much time would that save and how much would that help you going into that next conversation? And so that's the kind of things that where we really see AI partnering with a lot of these CRM tools and HubSpot specifically. But the key thing with all of this is that, like I said before, one, AI recognizes patterns and it learns like a person. Whatever you teach it, it's going to spit out.
Hmm.
So if we're feeding it bad data, because our data in our system is bad, the information we have on our customers is bad or old, then that's what it's going to spit out. So if we're not keeping our data up to date, it's
Hmm.
not going to have a very good picture of who it is that we want to target, who's our ideal customer profile, how many do we have, and then what's our opportunity to close some of these people. We're not doing the AI justice kind of in a way.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Greg, the other thing he likes to say is AI can be like a drunk uncle that, you know, he can be a
Yeah.
lot of fun and he can do really cool things, but if left unchecked, it can go crazy. And you've got to
Oh,
watch out
that's a
what
good
it'll
one.
do.
Yeah, and you don't want it to. And I think that actually you just kind of sparked a thought for me. So when it comes to just general marketing communications, one of your foundational pieces is like knowing who your audience is, knowing their pain points, and knowing what they need to hear, right?
Yeah.
So message. You always want to have a clear message. And it sounds like what you're saying foundationally, if you're going to have a CRM and you're going to expect it to be able to take advantage of AI agents and AI features, you have to have a foundational item of clean, organized data.
Yeah.
And if you've got that, then you can take advantage of all these things. If you don't have that, you have a drunk uncle apparently. Now,
Yeah. At
that's what I'm
best.
going to start saying. Yeah.
Yep.
We don't need any more of those.
We do
So,
not. The world does not need more drunk uncles.
yeah. I mean, maybe after hours, but not
Not
ever.
not from 8 to 5.
Yeah. Um, so that's a pretty cool way of explaining it. And I think just another I guess vocabulary question is when you think of an AI agent, would you say that like a good way to explain that would be it's almost like imagining you have this unbelievable intern who just always knows what you need in order to be prepared for a meeting or prepared to make the next phone call or prepared to like kind of face your day as a salesperson.
Yeah, it's like the
Yeah.
best executive assistant that you could have.
Yeah.
And I think intern's a great way to say it too, because I think an executive assistant, you might trust to call your customer, call whomever.
Yeah.
An intern, you're not. And I think that's the way, at least where we are in the evolution right now, that's how we have to think about AI. It can't go unchecked.
Yeah.
Everything has to be human led. human involved, human intervention, and needs to have that kind of ongoing checkpoint to make sure that it's cleaning the data that we want. It's evaluating things, it's writing emails in our tone, it's, whatever that agent is that you have kind of working on your behalf, you're checking its work just the same way that you would an intern.
Right. Yeah. But if you train the intern appropriately and they have a good work ethic, which we can assume a piece of software does, then your review time or the lift it takes from you just kind of gets better and better and better the more training time that you're able to put in.
Absolutely.
That's definitely been our experience. I want to talk a little bit more about something that's a little bit niche in the HubSpot or CRM space, but it's a word that when you hear it and you really understand what it means, it's like that sounds very appealing to me. I want that. Can you, and what I'm going to ask you about is the concept of a playbook. Maybe you
Mhm.
can explain what a playbook is and then like maybe a common way something like a playbook could be used in
Yeah.
HubSpot.
If you think about how playbooks are used in sports, it's used
Mhm.
very much the same way in a marketing or a sales conversation or workflow or campaign. Playbooks for sports is you have a series of plays that you're going to run based on the situation that's at hand. And that's very much the same that we would build a marketing or a sales playbook where we know we want to go to market in a specific industry or a specific way or with a specific product. We build it once and then we can iterate it based on the most expected situations that we think we're going to have. So,
Yeah.
as an example, we had a client that was in the home exterior services space, and they came to us. They had PE-backed funding. They had already acquired, I think, 4 companies and had big plans to ramp that up with high velocity.
Mm,
And the challenge side of acquiring a company is you acquire their customers, you acquire their systems, you acquire all of their problems and everything that comes with it. And so, how do you integrate that well? Because the other side, if you don't, you have high churn of those
mm-hmm.
customers that you basically just bought. That's what you're buying. You're either
Yeah.
buying assets or you're buying customers, typically in an M&A type of conversation. And you don't want to lose those customers that you just paid a good price for. And so you want to keep as you'll lose some, but you want to keep as many as possible. And so making that conversion from old company to new company as seamless as possible, you want that thought out well ahead of time. So
Yeah.
thinking through that playbook of we're going to acquire these types of companies. Here's our playbook of how we're going to integrate their system, how we're going to integrate their people, how we're going to bring customers over and have that conversation with them to let them know, hey, XYZ company is now 123 company. And don't worry, where you're going to get these more services and really have that best transition possible and have that well thought out ahead of time and create that repeatable playbook, whether that's acquisition, whether that's marketing campaigns or literally a sales conversation and having that, okay, if they say this, this is our objection.
Yep.
This is our objection response.
Yep. Exactly. So I think that's just one example of a playbook. Like you said, there's so many
So many.
so many other types. And I think when you guys go through that discovery process and talk to the different roles at the beginning of your engagements, you're looking for a lot of information at that point. But one of the things that you're looking for is, are there opportunities to create playbooks
Mhm.
that help this client scale in the way that they want to scale their business so that it's just more efficient use of their time? Again, not to replace somebody, but to make more of the time and talents of the people that they have currently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing, especially there are a lot of industries right now that are heavy into the mergers and acquisitions,
Hmm.
and having a systematic approach to not only the customer communications and the service, but also how you're, kind of scaling that with each new acquisition is huge. It's happening a lot, especially in the home services industries, but other ones as well.
We're getting a lot of conversations of M&A companies or just even the advisors coming and
Mhm.
talking to us and
Yep.
wanting to have those conversations with the buyers or sellers.
Yeah, and that's, I know just from relationships I have in that same space, if there is a PE firm or an investor who's interested in acquiring a business, they're either looking for a company that has this type of system in place, which then increases the value of the organization, or they're looking at it and saying they don't have that. So I'm going to get a better sale price because of that. And then I have an immediate system that I can implement to really enhance the value of what I bought. Those
Yeah.
are the things I'm hearing from the market.
Yeah, same thing. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Must do.
huge opportunity to scale. If you've got that clean, organized, non-drunk uncle data working for
Right.
you.
Yes, exactly.
So let's come back to a topic that I teased at the beginning of the episode, and we were talking about debunking the skeptics who are like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with CRM. We touched on it a little bit about like things that salespeople don't typically like, but
Hmm.
what are some of the other skeptical views that you hear quite a bit or experience, and like how can you debunk them for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we definitely take a therapist approach to that too. We're like, tell me more, because it's understanding why they think it doesn't work. And a lot of times it's typically a poor implementation. So if it's not because the process is broken and the people aren't using it, it's typically because of a poor implementation and it's not working the way that they want it to work.
Yeah.
It's not that the people aren't using it, the system doesn't function the way they want. And that does happen a lot. They were sold on the fact that it was really easy to do it yourself, and it really wasn't, which is a lot of these tools. And I mean, even HubSpot, relatively straightforward, but to do the very basic things. If you want to do anything of any level of complexity, bring somebody in to help you manage that and think through the processes of everything. I think the other reason too is from a DIY approach is you're too close to your own stuff and you really need that outside perspective to ask those questions and go deep. I think that's the other side of a poor implementation is not a lot, but there are a number of implementation agencies that it's just a technology implementation and they don't ask enough of the right questions to truly understand the business process and understand what the business is trying to accomplish. So it gets implemented, it's functioning, but not in the way that the business really can use it to grow as a growth engine for them, which is what a CRM should be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that poor implementation is like the heart and soul of it. And having somebody who has the expertise and has seen, like, oh no, this could go wrong. Don't brush past this. We need to talk about this more. It can feel like any kind of strategic engagement, it can feel like it's moving slow at the beginning. The
Mhm.
clarity that you gain will add speed later on, and it'll help to assure buy-in and
Yes.
usage, which is key. Like, don't go pay for something that isn't going to get used.
Yeah.
Follow a
Absolutely.
process that helps highly increase the chance or confirm that it is going to get used so you can
Yeah.
get the value out of it.
And I think what happens a lot too is they people get one system and then it's not working the way they want. So they bolt on something else that does the thing that they're missing. And then they bolt on something else and they bolt on something else. And it's still not working the way that they want. And so now they've got five systems that they're paying for. They somewhat overlap and the expenses increase and they're still not getting what they want. And I think that's where you get to the point of, oh, CRMs don't work. We're not getting any value out of it. And it's again, it kind of goes to that implementation side, but that's what happens a lot. And what we come in and do first is, as a part of our audit, is a marketing technology assessment.
Mhm.
We and not just marketing, we want to know all of your business systems because there's likely an opportunity to consolidate, streamline, better integrate, and save people some money too.
Yeah,
Not just make the processes better, but we can probably save you some money
yeah,
depending
yeah,
on what systems you're using. I mean, if you're going
yeah.
from thing to Salesforce or HubSpot, we're probably not saving you money. But if you've got
Right.
10 systems, there's a good chance we can.
Right, exactly. And for sure save manual time just trying to reconcile those systems and get them to all agree. so that you're getting the right data. Boy, that just the time savings alone
Yes.
adds efficiency. I think too that being guided, because a lot of these software tools, like if you haven't used them before and you're not working with somebody with that expertise, you don't even understand the feature set that could match up to the solving of a problem or pitfall that you're running into. I think you've got to work with someone and work with a team who knows these systems
Yeah.
really well.
There,
You should feel as a client like, wow, I just got led to something that I didn't even think was possible. Right?
yeah. You
Yeah.
want to get excited. We want you to
Yeah.
get excited about what you just learned, what we just showed you, what you're now going to be capable of doing as a business. Who cares what the system can do? You as a business are now going to be able to do X, Y, Z. And that's what we're looking for. And that's hard to do on your own because these
Yeah.
systems are getting more and more complex. And as we add AI layers and AI tools and other functionality, they're just getting even more complex.
Yeah.
And, you need somebody who is deep into those tools, and that's where they spend their time and research and resources, making sure they understand everything that's coming out and from that company and knows
Yeah.
the ins and outs of everything.
I want to ask you a question that I think helps wrap up our interview. I want to be really careful about how I ask it because our podcast is not a commercial for
Yeah.
the guest, right? I hope is coming across to people like, hey, if you're going to move forward with something like this, these are things you should be keeping in mind. And these are things you should expect. I mean, of course, I hope that they want to talk to you about it, but um, one of the things that you guys talk about a lot that I think is a good mindset to have about this kind of project is crawl, walk, run, right? So maybe that's a good thing to leave the listener with is like explain what you mean by that and explain how that approach really ensures value.
Crawl, walk, run. And it's kind of what you were saying before. Sometimes we have to slow down to speed up. And crawl, walk, run is really about let's figure out, crawling are what are those low-hanging fruit, small wins that we can get together that makes everybody feel good about this project. We've got buy-in. If we've got adopters, if we're struggling with adoption, we're going to get that adoption more quickly with a few things that we're putting onto their plate versus rolling out this huge, massive implementation all at once. Let's
Mhm.
figure out how do we get a few of these things going and get that flywheel just spinning, moving slowly. And then we can add some speed to it and continue to revolve and get faster and faster. But if we wait and do this 8-month massive implementation, one, we've probably missed the mark because we haven't talked to enough people and the world has changed in 8 months and your business has changed in 8 months.
Yeah.
And so it's not very agile in the way that the world works anymore, but also we're going to miss out on that adoption. And so we just need, and that crawl walk run is really that agile approach. We put something out there, we get adoption, we start working with people, we learn how people are using it, where it struggles, we fix it. We work with them, the business, and understand it and optimize and continue to move forward the way that we kind of do in our own lives.
Yeah. I love it. I think that's an awesome approach and it's not as daunting, right? That can be when you think about like cleaning up all of our customer data, that sounds really unfun. And so if
Even if you're
there's,
small, it
yeah,
doesn't sound fun.
yeah, exactly. It's like just making your Christmas card list is hard enough, and now you're wanting me to clean up our whole entire customer database. So I think
Exactly.
crawling into it and really understanding what those outcomes are and what can create those quick wins is an awesome approach. So I think, yeah, like I said, I think I'm hoping that leaves people with maybe some thinking about next steps and getting in touch with you. If somebody wanted to talk to you about like, hey, I'm really frustrated with our implementation, or I have been contemplating this kind of implementation, how would you like them to engage with you? Get in touch.
Ye- Yeah, absolutely. So I did put together a little landing page for people, and we have an ebook on there. Really, it's called the State of Martech for this year, and it talks
Awesome.
about a lot of the things that we've been talking about and the challenges and struggles and kind of a plan of attack and kind of the why. So it helps you also if you're trying to sell this up your
Hmm.
team. It'll give you a lot of that language if you're trying to sell up why we need to do a project like this. And then on that same landing page, if you want to connect with us, you can schedule time with us. And it's just a simple conversation. We talk about your goals, your challenges, and let's just see if we're a good fit. Growl's a specialized high touch team. We only take on a handful of clients at a time because we go deep and we get in your business. And like we need to make sure that we both really like each other and want to spend time together. So it starts really with let's just have a friendly chat and see if this is a good fit for both of us. So if that feels good with people. But that is going to be at growlagency.com/refresh.
Okay, and we'll put that in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the comment or the summary of the podcast interview. If you're not impressed that she's walking the walk and talking the talk on having a landing page put together, then you need to have another cup of coffee. That's pretty awesome. I love that you did that. That's like a free tool. I hope people take advantage of that, and I really appreciate you doing that for our listeners.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
pleasure. It's a great asset, and it will also lead you to that marketing tech platform audit that we give out to. So that's also a free resource that you can have. So.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks again, Libby. I really appreciate your time, and I think this has been super interesting and also valuable information for our listeners.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Thank you, Terri. It's
yeah.
been really fun. I enjoyed the conversation. Appreciate you asking me to be a part of it.
Thank you for listening to B2B Marketing Methods. Please be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast channel and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you and connect. You can find me on LinkedIn or visit our company website at marketingrefresh.com.